Survivor's ready.
If anybody has a hidden immunity idol and you want to play it, now would be the time to do so.
The queen stays queen.
You said rustle feathers.
Did you do that?
Yeah.
I'm supposed to calamity. We have ripe bananas all the time.
Dude, my prize isn't even $1 million. My prize was that I fell in love in this game. Love at first sight. Her name is Candace.
You officially go down as the dumbest survivor ever.
Welcome to Not Game, All Personal. Hey, we are a Survivor podcast here to talk about all things Survivor, more specifically the events of this past week. I'm Nathan. This is Tony. Tony, how are you doing?
I am doing well.
Do you want to thank me now or later?
Ooh, what am I thanking you for?
Well, here's the thing. Last week we had a little tuffle. That's a word, right? Of who to put in our bottom tier.
Ooh, that's true. Okay. Thank you, Nathan.
And because of me successfully convincing you to place Drew in the bottom tier, our credibility is just through the roof right now.
All-time high.
There's no more accurate Survivor podcast that's correctly placing the next person voted out in the bottom tier.
You know, people have been saying that, honestly. I've been hearing the rumblings.
You know, is it true that we had Caleb, Kelly, and Emily in the top tier when they got voted out?
No,
yes, but
that doesn't sound right.
But we almost made the mistake of having Drew in the middle tier, and I saved the day.
You saved the day. The hero, not the one we deserve, but the one we need.
We do need me.
Wait, is that an insult?
Correct.
Did I do that wrong?
Wait, we don't deserve me, but we need me?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind being needed.
We don't.
I think I'd rather that. I would rather that than, like, you deserve me. Because you deserve me could be an insult. It's like, oh, I'm a horrible person, so I deserve you.
Then I nailed it, Nathan.
You need me. Okay, let's talk actual Survivor, not just me. How you feeling after Drew's downfall of an episode?
It was pretty straightforward, which I think was like a bummer. I was hoping something exciting would happen at Tribal. Like it would have just been so much fun to see Austin play his idol for Drew, and then to see Jake panic, and then also play his idol, and yeah, it would have just been exciting. But I mean, it was a good episode, I think. Something that I think we saw coming, or I guess we thought he was just going to get to the end and not communicate well, but obviously everybody else didn't think that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everybody else seemed confident in his ability to defend his game, and so he was out of there, which makes sense.
Yeah, it felt too obvious from the start, but then once it got to the end, it was like, okay, so I guess you're right, just straightforward. The editing on this episode specifically, I feel like just highlighted the worst of him in so many ways. It just felt like every single segment was him just, kind of talking smack about Julie, like being so overly confident, like, well, we got her next week. Him kind of throwing a fit at the reward not being chosen.
Yeah.
You had like all these elements that I think really added to like the watch party that I have. Like, I mean, everyone was cheering when Austin didn't play his idol for Drew. Like it successfully worked in creating just such a hateable person, which I don't think he really is. Obviously those are just selected clips, but I think the episode really played into that. Like, this guy is so overly confident. Let's watch how bad he's going to fail and be blindsided. And it worked. It was effective TV.
Yeah, it's wild to be as confident as he was that Julie was the one to go at that point. Like, when you know the game, you should never know it's that it's never that easy.
Mm-hmm.
And also, Julie played an idol because someone told her. I feel like that's such an obvious thing to know, but they seem to be unsure about that, which surprised me. But overall, like, Drew was a fun player, I think. This episode actually gave him credit for the decisions, gave him some credit for some of the decisions that have been made recently. Which is something that I feel like we hadn't seen him have really, other than him saying that he's doing stuff. So that was cool to see. But yeah, I think it makes for an interesting endgame. And now I wonder if Austin was blindsided by D.
Mm-hmm.
And so it'll be interesting to see after he just put his game on the line by telling her, she turned around and didn't tell him.
Yeah, it's bizarre how parallel those situations are. Like they are almost identical. Where you got, kind of the in between people, Jake Katura,
Mhm.
kind of just like, oh yeah, well let's vote for this person. Um, Picking off the opposite sides of the Reba Four, and then having Austin D in the middle. Again, like you said, Austin deciding to tell D, hey, it's Julie. D not telling Austin, hey, it's Drew.
Mhm.
Which, I don't know. Like, does that just make D the better player strategically? So like it's so crazy that we literally had back to back, and it seems like she came out on top because her number one is still there, and Austin's now is not.
Yeah, and last week I said Austin was dumb for telling her, like that was a bad decision. And so it would feel foolish for me to turn around and say that D it was dumb for her to not tell him. And so I think it was great. Like that's you kind of have to do that. You kind of have to make sure that you are the number one option for somebody. And I think Austin, like they're close enough that I feel like he's not gonna just hate her now. Like they're still gonna be tight.
I
I
don't
don't think
think
it's
he
gonna be a
can.
huge
I think
issue
he
long
has
term.
to still rely on her
True,
because who else does he
she's the only
have?
option.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And I think that is something that she probably is aware of, like, hey, sorry I had to blindside you. It was too risky, but like, look, you need me, right? Who are you gonna go to? You gonna go work with Katura and Jake? Yeah, good luck. Come at us. Come at me and Julie. Which
Yeah,
that'd actually be kind of crazy, but no, I like Austin's not gonna turn on D.
no, no chance. This episode I really enjoyed their like back and forth, the little relationship that's budding there. I thought it was very fun. Like talking trash during the
Oh,
challenge, that was
into
fun.
a
I enjoyed it.
showman's.
Hey, I
Who have you
enjoyed it.
become?
Well, it's similar to like America and Corey when they started like flirting a little bit. I was like, oh, that's kind of cute. All right, I'm in on this, and I think I like both of them, so that helps. Similar to that situation.
That makes sense. Yeah, yeah. If you
It
like
also
them.
spices up the end and makes for potential like huge heartbreak, which is always a good time.
I'm really rooting for a fire between the two of them. That would
That'd be
just
sick.
that'd be really good TV. It's incredible stakes on the line.
Feel too much like Tony and Sarah. And obviously they weren't dating, but
Sure, but I mean those are the best, the best fires when it's like that. Those emotional
hmm
stakes on the line.
that's fair.
Um,
That's definitely fair.
yeah, I don't know how this final five's gonna shake out. And I'm sure at the end we'll probably give our rankings. I feel like we usually do that this time around, right? 1 through 5 of who we think
What we're doing?
best
Well,
chance.
yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I feel like we do that every season because there's you not successfully because it wasn't one, but I'm just will never forget you putting Gabler at number 2 and me being shocked, and then somehow you weren't right, but you were more right than I was putting him at 5. So it was
Yeah, I saw the path. I think that was the episode, or maybe the episode before that. I was like, I see the edit telling me that this is a possibility, and I'm not happy about it, but it is.
yeah, yep, and good job, congratulations. You should be happy about Gabler's win.
Thank you, thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the aftermath of last tribal. There's a couple things I want to bring up. I think we had some questions last week about the splitting the vote, the lack of splitting the vote.
hmm
Like where does D go from here? How much? And so this episode, it was just made clear that like D is trying to play a double agent here.
hmm
Perfectly aware of where the vote was going, felt like it wasn't worth, voting with Julie, making Julie aware of that, playing dumb. I thought that was kind of fun. I feel like we don't see a
hmm
lot of that in Survivor of someone just hiding an alliance like this.
Yeah, because I feel like it's so hard to like. That's not an easy thing to do when you're spending a ton of time with somebody, anyways. But yeah, it's always so much fun when you like they're walking away and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna start laughing," like pretending that they're mad at each other. It's just great, especially when it doesn't. Like it's great when it doesn't work, and it's great when it does work. So that's what's so fun about it.
I also think it's brilliant on Dee's part too, because I think you walk away from last tribal, and I think like Julie gets the most credit, right, by like playing an idol, unanimous vote, her
Hmm.
single vote gets someone out. But I think now Dee can go, like if she makes it to final tribal, she can claim this vote as something on her resume because of,
Hmm.
hey, I was the one that told Julie. Hey, I was the one that played, and whether or not it worked, because I think Drew had a confessional where he's like, oh, this is horrible acting, so he was kind of onto it, it seemed
Hmm.
like. Not enough to do anything, I guess, but I don't know. It's kind of cool because Dee could have just like voted with Julie, and I don't think that resume would have been as strong now that she kind of didn't vote with Julie, but was aware. I don't know. It's just like another layer that is kind of cool to explain if she gets to the end.
Yeah, a little bit of like playing behind the scenes and puppet mastering in a way, which I think is always just such a great feather in the cap because you don't see it a ton. As much as we like want that and look for that, it's an uncommon thing to actually see take part in the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so here is something that I learned today. I'm not sure if
Oh
you
boy.
are aware of this. I would guess not. I'm guessing you didn't really watch a lot of interviews today with Drew,
Mm-mm.
being voted out. So I watched one with him, and this is fascinating. So he was talking about last week's vote, and we saw a little bit about this in the episode. Okay, where he
Mm-hmm.
mentioned that last week actually kind of worked out because now they can just vote Julie this week, and Emily went home, who was a big threat, and he didn't get blood on his hands. So
Mm-hmm.
in the interview today, he kind of gave a little more clarity that most people were kind of aware that Julie knew last week and potentially was going to play an idol. So that was like something they kind of knew going into tribal. And his logic was to still put all the votes on Julie and let her choose, trusting she wouldn't choose Austin and that she would probably go for Emily because Emily was targeting her. So I think it does give a little more like, okay, it wasn't just a bad move on his part. There was some
Yeah.
like, okay, worst case scenario, it's probably going to be Emily. I still think, poor move on Emily for not thinking that through. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know. I thought that was kind of a cool fact. That he at least thought of that, I suppose.
Yeah, allowing that to happen, knowing that it'll just make sure you don't get blood on your hands, but get rid of somebody that you're close to and is probably going to be an issue. I
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's so interesting because like so much of credit in this game goes by how it's explained. Like that easily could have been explained as just Julie's move. No one did anything to help at all, but just giving it that nuance of like, no, we knew that this was a possibility, and I just assumed that she would go for Emily.
Mm-hmm.
Adds like some value to Austin's work as well, or Drew's work as well. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it makes a little more sense too why Austin didn't play his amulet at that tribal because if they were having conversations about it and kind of aware where Julie's vote would probably go, it makes a little sense. But the other thing that this might derail us a little bit into this meta voting that we like to get off topic with.
Oh
So
boy.
you can shut it down as fast as you want or not. Um, but he also had a little rant.
Shutting it down. No, just kidding. Go ahead.
He had a little rant of how he thinks splitting the vote is usually a mistake. And that's why
Ooh.
he tried to stop that this season, which I was fascinated by. And most of it, from what I gathered, I mean, this was in an interview, so he didn't get like a lot of time to ramble. He just kind of added this on to like whatever question they asked him. And his logic was pretty much like what we just described, where when you split the vote, there's often more chance for someone to flip it on you or someone else. Like it's easier for people to break off when the votes are that small. You're creating a second target by whoever the split vote is with. And his logic is, especially if you're safe like he was in that scenario with immunity, uh, the worst case scenario is you're playing a risky game of who is this one person going to vote for. And the worst case scenario isn't always that bad because the next week, that person who just became safe is still the biggest target. So, like the Caleb situation, when Caleb was
Hmm.
voted unanimously and they didn't split the vote, they
Yeah.
they had a feeling where Caleb's vote might have gone, so they let it play out. And the fact that Caleb stayed in the game didn't actually hurt them at all because he was the obvious next vote.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
I don't
definitely
know if
see
I
it.
agree, but I want to hear your thoughts because that's just I've never heard that because for weeks now I've been hammering how stupid they are for not splitting the vote, and now I'm like, wait a minute, that was intentional? Tell me more.
Yeah, I think I like the idea because, like, I don't like the idea that there's an obvious next vote because I think there's a few examples of where that's been the case. But as we've said a million times, and as we just saw, there wasn't an obvious next vote.
Mm-hmm.
It was flipped on him, and so that's obviously not always the case. But I like the idea that splitting the vote opens it up for somebody to make a move because of how the votes are. The 4-3-2 I feel like is the classic example of, oh, we're gonna split between these two people or whatever, and then you just get two votes and you completely flip it, and then you're able to vote out someone else who doesn't expect it at all. And so it does open up that risk, which is I feel like we've kind of like danced with like or like thought about this a little bit in that it is really risky to split the vote with people that you're not 100% aligned with unless there's like a Bruce or somebody where you're like everybody wants this person out so bad, like
Right.
there is that risk. I feel like we've talked about that before. So I guess it makes sense that putting all the votes on one person and then just hoping that it's not you, that's a tough spot to be in. Seen people nullify a lot of votes and then one person goes just because of like one or two votes. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you gotta decide how you're gonna risk it at that point.
Yeah. I think, again, last week is a little bit different because he was safe. So there is no risk for
Mm-hmm.
him. I think the bigger risk last week was, will Julie take out my number one, which is Austin? Now, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
that was a risk he was willing to take. Austin took it. Austin was
Mm-hmm.
most aware of Julie's knowledge and that he has, so yeah, it's interesting. And I think it's hard to discuss because obviously, like you said, it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
His plan backfired, making Julie the next obvious threat. And so I don't know. I would love to hear a more detailed explanation from him or others of this meta because I was just under the impression for so long, like, you have to split the vote.
And I think that impression in itself makes it more surprising when somebody just goes all votes on one person. And so it might be a very useful tactic now just because it's so unexpected for it to just be all on one person. If it's a split voter or the people on the bottom are expecting a split vote, they might be scrambling for votes. They might not be like planning on playing an idol necessarily. Just because of how things are falling. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if it would affect it that much. Yeah, it's
And
definitely worth thinking about more.
we'll think about it and come back to you, Al, because I know this is everyone's favorite part of the podcast where we just go off on tangents of vote numbers. It's important.
And just kind of fumble our way through how to do it.
All right. Other big things that happened in the episode. We had a reward challenge that Austin won. Very funny third wheel by Katura. Fantastic shots of them in the helicopter, and just everything about that was really funny. I like that a lot.
Yeah, yeah, that was very good. And the fact that she's just like, oh, like doesn't notice it at first, and it's like, oh right, yeah, that's what's happening. Okay,
Like, oh, that's
cool.
that's my role today. Got it.
Yep, cool.
Another just a good editing episode because the shot of the helicopter going by the beach and just Drew just pouting again, just fantastic. I loved it. And then I kind of loved Austin's logic too of who to take. Of like, he had a confessional where he's like, "Yeah, I left Julie, Jake, and Drew on the beach because nothing's gonna happen with the three of them," and I thought that was hilarious.
That was very good. Julie and Jake would have been interesting. That looked like they were trying to really pull something together. But yeah, there's not a huge threat there, really.
No, no. So all good stuff. Yeah, and then I think it's just the immunity challenge, which D was rock solid. This is the second immunity win by her that her big toes probably played a factor in.
Oh,
So
hey, I didn't even think about her big toes.
that's all every time I see her, that's all I think about is her feet. I'm gonna be honest. Just
Are
because
you one of those guys?
that was the one thing That was like the introduction to her. Okay,
True.
episode 2.
Sure.
For the first 3 episodes, because they weren't going to tribal, that's all we knew.
I completely forgot about it.
Oh, not me. I like first impression to stick with me, especially on Survivor. So like that's literally like, oh yeah, D, she has feet, you know, and it's helping her in these challenges. Good for her.
It is. I suppose so. It's outrageous. I genuinely would not have been able to tell you that was a thing that was said about her at some point.
How? That was like the defining characteristic. It's like, oh, Austin is, he's good at challenges and he's finding idols. Drew, oh, he's, strategic. D, she's got feet. That's like literally, that was her archetype.
She's got feet. Yeah, that was her archetype. Absolutely.
They need a foot girl every season.
Jeez. Name the last few feet, girl.
The last few feet, girl. That's I'm trying to think who would be the foot girl from last season. Wait, let me pull up a list of the cast. This is important now. It's way more important than whatever else we're gonna talk about.
Sorry, I did this, everyone. I'm so sorry.
I think Carolyn's definitely the foot girl. Are you kidding me?
I was wondering how long it would take you to get there.
I couldn't think of the cast. Dude, all these seasons blend in together. I'm gonna be honest, like
They do.
They're so similar, and I think we talked about it. It's because there's like no themes anymore. It's like 41 through 45. It takes me so long to process who was on what season. I'm just like, oh yeah, Carolyn played with Jonathan, right? And it's like, no. It's like, oh really?
Certainly not. Yeah, the themes give you so much context to just lean on. And without it, yeah, it's just they really do blend together. It's crazy.
Without it, all we have is feet to lean on. So after D wins immunity, here's kind of the order of events that lead to Drew getting out. Okay, and
Okay.
we can talk about however you want. It feels like the episode leads us to believe that Jake is the first one to kind of bring it up with Julie.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Julie is thrilled. They want to bring in Katura, so Jake tells Katura. Jake wants to keep it a 3-3 and thinking he can sway people on the revote. Little does he know that Julie has D, which is where it gets tricky because she can't just say like, oh, I got D, or I'll go talk to D because they're supposed to be fighting. Then Katura just spills the D, which is helpful. It just all worked out.
Just dancing around and weird relationship there that I feel like we haven't seen at all, and now they're dancing together in the jungle.
Again, fantastic edit because it went from like, okay, like we can't tell D, and then it just immediate like jump cut to
like, woo!
Let's go for Drew.
Yep.
And then it pretty much just ends with the cliffhangers. Did D tell Austin or not? Which is something we don't know till we go to tribal. So yeah, it's fascinating. I don't really know what to make of Jake at this point because I feel like we have had him bottom tier like the entire time. And now I'm just like, oh, he's got to move now. And it's confusing. And the crazy thing is, like, voting Drew out, the reason I walked that all through is because it feels like everyone kind of had a part in it to some extent.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, sure, he's the first one to say it out loud. But I think everybody, a lot of them were on board with just like, oh, not me. Absolutely, I'm in. But I think, everybody was on board and probably thinking that was something that needed to happen soon. So just because he's the one that vocalized it first, does he get the majority of the credit, or is it split evenly between? I don't know where it would fall in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, the way the episode presented it, I think that's what they wanted us to walk away with like, because he had a whole confessional of like, Julie's an easy thing. I got to make a move. Like, I got to do something. And that was his pitch to Julie is like, hey, we got to make a move that stands out. So I think that's the fascinating thing is like, he kind of gets that credit. But I think like Julie obviously gets a lot of credit. I think honestly, like, it wasn't framed this way, but like Katura gets some credit for bringing in D because she kind of stopped a split vote, which, you know, would have
Mhm.
been entertaining, but like she kind of secured that fourth vote from what we saw.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think Julie would have talked to her anyways, but so it's just
Yeah.
fascinating because like across the board, like everyone kind of had their hand in it except for Austin.
Mhm. Oh yeah. Yeah, I feel like he probably has the biggest claim, can argue having the biggest claim because he's the first one to bring it up. But I think when you really look at it, it wasn't just a single person's move. It was everybody all doing different pieces that made it a good move.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough. I don't want it to seem like I'm unwilling to give Jake credit. I don't think
It's
he's a
fine.
great
You are.
player, but that's not why I'm so unwilling to just be like, oh, yep, Jake is the reason that Austin got voted out. I think they would have probably found
True.
their way
Drew
there
got
no
voted
matter
out.
what. Drew, yep. I get those two mixed up way more than I should. I think for some reason Drew is more of an Austin to me. I don't think Austin is more of a Drew though to me.
That's fascinating. I think D is more of a Jake to me, and Jake is more of a D personally.
I could see Jake being a D.
He could be a
I
D.
don't think I could see D being a Jake.
What about a Jakelin?
I could see a Jakelin. So anyways, golly.
Yeah, I feel like this could be one of those situations where, let's say Jake makes it to final tribal. He pitches this as part of his resume. Hey, I was
Mhm.
the reason Drew went home. And I could see the jury being like, wait a minute, nope, that was me, and me, and me. You know? So
Mhm.
I could see this being difficult for him to fully claim. Because it was a move, but it felt like the most obvious move outside of just playing it safe and going for Julie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Couture, I think all of them see Couture and Jake as not the biggest threats, at least in the Reba 4.
Yeah.
And so it was the opportunity to make a move off of the obvious move. And there's something about you never really want to do the obvious thing in Survivor. That's something that I've noticed. Like you always want to surprise somehow because that just makes it better. That's higher, makes it higher value
Mm-hmm.
in an interesting way.
Yeah.
Even if it's
Yeah.
not the smart move, it's the flashy move to do what is unexpected.
Right. Yep, I completely agree. But the move was made. We just keep saying it was a big downfall on Drew's part. Just
Yeah.
a rough tribal council performance in hindsight, seeing how
Mhm.
everything turned out.
Mhm.
Just, you know, oh yeah, I got a clear vision. I know exactly how I'm getting to the end. And Julie just saying like, wow, good for you. And it's not working out.
Yeah.
So, I guess the question is, where do we go from here? We got final five. I don't know who's gonna win this game. I got a
Neither
hunch.
do I. I think there's some options.
I I think, and I think more than ever, probably more than the past 5 seasons, and this might be a horrible take because I also predicted Gabler the fifth, you know, most likely to win. But I think I could talk my way into any one of these 5 winning, and I wouldn't be surprised. Do you
It
see
really,
that too, or are there still people that you're like, I don't see a path, I don't see a way they could get the jury votes?
I feel like I'd be unsatisfied, and that's kind of how I view. Getting the jury votes is a different question. I think Jake and Katura would be not super satisfying winners for me. I think I could see any of the three remaining Reba win, and that would make sense for me. I feel like Julie has been built up as a big threat. I think Dee has shown herself to be a big threat just throughout the game, and Austin obviously has been winning immunities and also finding idols and all of that good stuff. Even though he gave one away and then played one on himself for no reason. I digress.
Yeah. But he found him.
Didn't do anything.
He got him.
Yeah, he found him. Well, one of them he didn't even want too. That's the one he gave away and it screwed him over. So when you look at it like that, it's a little tough. I'm not gonna lie.
It's pretty rough.
I just don't see, unless Jake does something really cool with his idol. I don't see him really having much to say. And Couture, I feel like has done next to nothing. Maybe that's unfair. I guess there was the vote when they were split into 2 groups.
I
And
was
she
gonna say
decided to.
she's the reason Caleb's gone.
Yeah, Caleb would have gotten voted out eventually, anyways.
She got
I'm
Bruce
confident.
out.
Did she get Bruce out?
I mean, they all did, but she beat him. That's a.
All right.
That's a. I'm just saying. I think like there is enough there that if they successfully taught, like for Katura's sake, I think if she can properly word the Bruce narrative correctly, I think there's something there. I think if Jake can properly word the, hey, I was the backup plan for 3 weeks in a row and I'm still here. I orchestrated Drew getting voted out. I found an idol. Like there's enough there. It depends, so that I think that's my point. Obviously I have a ranking of like who is most likely to win, but I think everybody has the resume. It's just a matter of like, does the jury agree with it and can they properly communicate it? And I think that's what it's going to come down to.
And one thing that I'm thinking about is like, how does the jury feel about the Reba 4, like that group from Reba? Because
Sure.
there's very little Reba on the jury, and
Just
it's not
Drew.
always like you can just count on those. Currently, I think there's a chance that another one will join.
Yeah.
But I think there's a good chance it's a 2 Reba, 1 non-Reba final, and it's like, are they bitter towards this group of Reba people? Who knows? And so that's the hard thing but I think that each Reba person has a better resume and also each Reba person I feel like has distinct moves. I guess Julia, I would say each one has distinct moves that they can claim. Which is an interesting thing for an alliance that we've seen throughout the game.
Yeah, and here I might just tip. No, I don't want to tip my ranking yet because I do have it. There's one person in there where I don't think they got the moves. I think they got the illusion of the moves, but you'd have to really do a 180 spin zone to talk that into a good resume. That's my take. That's my spoiler of a take. I mean, we could just get into the rankings if you want. I don't know.
Yeah, we should probably get into the rankings.
Are we? Is it time to throw out the tier list? Are we? Is it?
Well, I was gonna say let's do tier where it's like tier is just do 2 tiers.
Let's do 5. Let's do 5 tiers.
Okay, yeah, let's do 5 tiers.
And then also a ranking. But okay, here's the big difference is I think the ranking we can disagree on because we'll have individual rankings. The tier we'll have to compromise, which is so I guess the question is what do we want to do? Do we want to try to talk this out together or do we just want our individual takes and then maybe
we should do rankings for sure. I think it'd be interesting to do tiers. Just do 2 tiers.
I love how we work this out on the podcast every time.
1 tier is can win the game. 2nd tier is won't win the game. Like we just call our shot.
Just 1
First
and 2
tier is could win the game, and then the 2nd tier is won't win the game.
So that'll be different than our rankings?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, like, let's say how many goes in each tier? Is it 2 in the top or 3 in the top?
To make it hard, we're going to go 2 in the top.
Okay, but that might actually be easy because let's say we both had the same top 2, then boom, we're done.
Well, Nathan, I don't know what you want from me.
All right, we'll just see how it pans out. Do you want to start with last, like 5th place or first?
Last.
Okay. Do you have yours? I mean, I think I got mine down.
I got mine in the dome, so we're just gonna go for it.
Yeah, mine's I don't write anything out. Okay, my last place is Austin. That's the person I'm alluding to.
Wow.
What has he done? Like, let's look in hindsight here. I think his biggest moves were those advantages that he was stacking up, and every single one was used incorrectly or against him. His social game messed him up. His number one I just can he claim a move, a vote that doesn't involve D or Drew? I just don't think he has the resume. And I think he's in a position where he might not even make it to the final at this point.
Okay. Hey. I could see it.
I know you disagree, but I'll hear you out.
Yeah, I'll respect that. I got no pushback necessarily. I'm gonna go with my number 5. I'm gonna move on if that's okay. I'm gonna go with Katura.
What? Shocker.
I just don't see it. I think there's people who were hesitant to play with her throughout the game, and I don't know if they like will respect her game a ton. I don't think she's done a ton. I feel like she's just been around for a while. She's been a part of some moves, but that's just being a number because you know that you can't really drive a decision. I feel like that was harsh. I don't feel good about that. But yeah, I just feel like Katura's not it.
All right. Well, my number 4 is Katura.
Cool.
However, I'm much higher on her. I just trying to
Yeah.
be because I do think she has moves. I think more than Austin, and it's kind of the deciding factor. And I also think outside of Bruce, I don't know if she has as many enemies on the jury. And I think like her social game has actually been very strong where the fact that like I don't know if she's been considered at all during this game. I unless I'm forgetting something, I don't think her name's been written down. I think she has been such a non-threat, which is a good play in some cases, you know?
It's a tough
Obviously,
line to toe. I see what you're saying, but
yeah.
it's a tough line to toe.
Yeah, obviously, you know, I think like if you're a big threat and you get to the end, that's impressive. But sometimes it's also impressive if you were never a threat, you know? And I think that's kind of what she's done. I think she's played socially to the point where she's just never an option, you know? And I think I could be wrong, but like I don't know if she's ever voted incorrectly. You know, like I think the narrative of her and Bruce has kind of painted her as like I don't know, this like personality that like doesn't like people or doesn't want to work with people. But like when you look at the actual facts of it, it's like I don't know. She's never really been on the outside unless Bruce kind of puts her on the outside, and even then people were including her behind his back. So I just think there's a very interesting narrative there, but I don't think she's gonna win the game. I feel very strong that she could make it to final tribal, but I just don't know if she has as strong a resume as the other 3.
Mm-hmm. I just fact checked, not because you're wrong. She is
No, please
voted
do.
incorrectly twice.
Twice. Okay, which ones?
She voted for Jake when Kelly got voted out, and she voted for.
Oh, that's right.
She was one of the nullified votes for Julie.
Oh,
So
sure.
that was everybody voted wrong on that one. So that's
Yeah.
a little bit different, but
No, I'm glad
yeah.
you fact checked.
Not even to say that your point was incorrect, but I just checked that.
And I guess also the
my
Caleb vote too, then, right?
yeah,
That's a-
yeah, I guess if you want to go all the way back to that.
That was a
But then
horrible
voted
point.
correctly on J Maya, so
Horrible
there's
point on my
that.
end. Fair. Go ahead.
I would say that my number 4 would be. I guess I gotta go Austin. I think don't like Jake, and I think I can't let that affect this ranking. Because I think there is a world where he can convince everybody that he was smarter than I think he was throughout the game. So I'm gonna go with Austin. A lot of the things that you said, I think. I wonder what his perception is in the jury, what their perception of how much he's been driving and how much in control he's been. Because that will drive a lot of what his value is going into that final tribal. And I think he might be decent. I don't know. I don't know if he'll be good at defending himself. I think there's a lot of people who will be very good at it, and so this final tribal will be interesting to see who comes out on top. But yeah, I think there's not really any plays that you can point to him that were super valuable. I guess telling D, but he told D not to tell Julie about the vote last week. Other than that, he wanted the sandwich, so he wasn't even asking for that. It didn't seem like it was never a narrative that they were trying to get rid of Kelly and J Maya to make it an idol. Like that was never a huge part of the narrative, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
And even so, Drew gets some more credit for that than he does, I think, in a lot of ways. So yeah. It's gotta be him.
All right, my number 3 is Jake.
Me too.
Well, there we go. There's our tier list already.
Yep.
Cool.
We can change it. Jeez.
Okay, let's change it to the top 3 in the top and 2 in the bottom. Or wait, we're still right. Look at that.
Yeah.
Okay, Jake. Look, I do think he's got a resume. Like I said, I think it just depends on how he explains it, because I think there is a narrative there of like being the one that survived. It's and this is why I love the game, because there's so many ways to win. You can be a threat and make it to the end, and that's good. You can be the backup plan and somehow survive all those plans and get to the end and win. You could be, like I said, Katura, who's never a threat, get to the end and win. We've seen all three examples, and I think we have everything represented here. And Jake is that person where he was the other end of the split vote multiple times. He was never hardly on the right side of the vote, or if he was, again, he was still the backup plan. I think what's pushing him up to number 3 too is the fact that he has an idol, knowing that he will at least go to fire. Like, that's pretty big. I'm just assuming because of his physique and his accent that he's good at fire. I don't know why. I just feel like, with that strong of a Boston guy. Is that a crazy take?
Rob, is that what you're saying?
I don't know. I just can't imagine, like, what was he saying last night? Oh, he's saying we're looking for peppers. Just great. So I think he's got a strong chance to make the final 3 as well. Yeah, that's my Jake take.
I think it's fair. I think that makes sense. That just it puts him in a good spot to make it that far. I think it'll be so interesting to see how the jury receives this group. Because we've seen it before where it's like, oh, this person clearly should have the most respect based on what we've seen. And then we get to the final tribal, and for some reason everybody hates Cassidy, and it's like, what was going on here?
Yep.
We've seen that over and over, so it's entirely up to their perception. So number 2, I think I'm gonna go with, because we both had him for 3. I'm gonna go with Julie for number 2.
That's also my number 2.
And I don't know if it should be. I don't know if how much I like D is clouding this a little bit. But
do you not like D?
No, I really like D.
You really?
I'm
okay, gotcha.
Me really liking D is affecting me wanting to put her at 1. Because I feel like Julie, you could argue Julie has more claim to the idol play. Or can you? I feel like D might have more claim because she told Julie to play it because she was the target.
It's tough. It's
really
really
tough.
tough.
You have to give all the credit to D, and then D argued against her playing it on Austin.
If D explains that properly to the jury, because the jury is not aware of that, right? So now the jury is going a couple tribals looking at Julie's big move. So that's you're right. It's tough.
But then D the next week doesn't tell Austin, and therefore guarantees Austin goes.
Okay,
home.
we're talking about Julie here. Let's focus.
I know. I'm sorry. I have to convince myself that D is the correct choice. I'm confident now. Everybody loves Julie. I don't know how much that will actually matter going into it. I think that's maybe a tiebreaker. If you're not sure between a couple people, you might go Julie over somebody else. But she's played a good game. I don't think she's won an immunity, but she's been close a couple times.
Yeah, it was her and Bruce for like those 2 weeks that she came in second.
And she's been consistently strong in challenges, but hasn't actually won anything, which might hurt her with how much people emphasize challenges. I feel like she's been in strong control of that alliance, or at least, I don't know, she got turned on and is surviving, so that's something too. She nullified all the votes and had a single vote to evict. That's always going to be a huge thing. But I just think D deserves it over her, or is placed over her for me.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to just keep talking about D while you're at it, or do you want me to go for Julie?
You go, Julie.
All right. Yeah, no, I think like their duo clearly is like the winning duo of the season, and I think like, yeah, I mean, Julie's got the resume, like she's got the social game. She has made moves. I think if we're splitting her and D up, I think she kind of has a little bit of the upper hand on this Drew vote, just because I know like D didn't tell Austin, which is huge, but like this was like Julie's war, right? Like it was like Julie and Drew kind of pitted up against each other. In the words of Drew, Julie being the ex-girlfriend that shows up to your wedding, which just feels rude, but I guess it's a fair analogy of Like, just go away, Julie. You know, kind
It's
of.
so many of those. It's ridiculous, dude.
My favorite part of last night's episode, because when he used that analogy, I brought up my favorite talking point to our watch party. It was like, oh, just wait till tribal. Jeff loves analogies, blah blah blah. And sure enough, Drew has another analogy, and then Austin makes a comment. I forget what Austin even said. Jeff ignores Austin's comment, goes back to Drew's, and he goes, I think it was to Jake maybe. He goes, Jake, tell me more about like Drew's analogy. Wasn't that a good one? Like, he literally said that. He goes, beautiful analogy. Drew. Like, he is obsessed with them. Okay, besides the
Jeff
point.
loves him for sure.
I decided I want that to be my goal for the off season. I need to put a compilation just of all the analogies at Tribal Council and Jeff's reaction to them, because it feels like every week at this point there is a analogy that Jeff is just grinning over.
It's his favorite thing. I think that's what they look for. They have tribal council. They talk until somebody gives them a good analogy, and he's like, "All right, now we can vote."
Yeah, I mean, people have to catch on at this point, right? Like, if I'm on Survivor, like, I'm just making it my goal to have as many analogies as possible. Like Jeff.
I want to come back and play. Yeah, I'm gonna just pepper him with analogies.
Like,
You don't like that one,
Survivor's,
Jeff? Well, here's another one.
Survivor's kind of like a burrito, like you got your outer shell, you got the beans in the middle. So, sometimes the cheese is a little much, sometimes it isn't, but then it just overflows on you when you take a bite, and it just turns into this mess. And you got, like, I don't know. I haven't workshopped it enough, but we're talking about Julie here. I think she's played a great game. That's it. I don't
Love it. Dynamite dropping.
I lost my train of thought with her.
Yeah, I feel like. Yeah, I feel like I've said everything that I need to say. I think it's D for sure as the number one.
I feel
think
like
it'll be
it is
interesting 'cause
so obvious.
There's 3 lawyers left in the game, and so we'll see. Maybe they'll be able to argue their case in front of the jury.
Wouldn't it be hilarious if we get to the end and let's say it's the 3 of them,
All
and
3 lawyers.
Jake somehow drops that in, like, oh, in law school, blah, 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 this is how I do the thing. And then, like, Julie's just like, well, something that I didn't tell you guys, I'm a lawyer. And then Katura is like, wait. Like, just unknowingly.
I'm also a lawyer.
And then they just don't believe her by default, just because what are the odds that 3 lawyers made it to the final 3 without actually knowing that the 3 of them were lawyers?
That's insane. I love it.
Yeah, no, I think D is the obvious pick here, which again just makes me second guess myself because I'm usually wrong about this. I don't know if I've successfully guessed the winner. No, I think we both were high on Marianne going into the final tribal. Last
Probably
year
decently.
did not. I think Jam Jam was maybe number 3 on our ranking. Erica was like hinted as maybe, but like I don't think so. I don't know. Like, this is.
Yeah, the last time we had an obvious person going into the final, it was Tony.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think so.
Where it's like he's the clear front runner. We just have to make sure he doesn't screw anything up, and he didn't.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I feel about D, where it's like this is her game to lose.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that, which again makes me scared because I'm wrong a lot.
Yep.
So it's probably going to be Jake.
It'll be very interesting to see what Jake does with that idol.
I mean, he's going to use it, right?
Well, yeah, he's going to use it for sure. But, like, are people going to be voting for him? And so he plays the idol and then has the solo vote to evict? Is it going to just be he plays it on himself and it doesn't actually affect anything? Like, that'll be interesting to see.
I think if I was in that position, and this is probably getting too cute with it, I would just like almost like pull a Ben, just be like, guys, just vote for me. Like, you deserve this, blah, blah, blah. Take all the votes and then have the 1 vote, because that's probably an easier way to get the person you want out rather than try to convince other people.
Mm-hmm. What do you think his shot is at that point then?
It's so hard to tell because I just don't know who, because it doesn't feel like they identify D as the threat. Like it feels like the fact that Julie has been the target for like 2-3 weeks now, it's kind of insane. Like, I don't think Austin would be the move because I think D would have his back. So I I don't know. Like, does he just go for Julie at this point? Is that the easy way out?
It's a move.
I have no idea. I don't know who's aligned with who anymore, to the point of like I don't know who's gonna go next.
I don't know if D has the. I wonder what the perception around D is, because it doesn't seem like people are really trying to get her out, which
No.
makes me question our rankings. Because I think she's clearly been playing a strong game from an edit standpoint.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah. So are you saying like your threat level might also indicate how the jury views your game?
Yeah, and even just like the other players in the game, like are they nervous about her? And if not, does that say something about what's really going on as opposed to the edit we're being shown?
Yeah, I think part of it is that like they just haven't had a chance to be nervous yet, because I think for the past, like, you had Emily in the game, which I think was a threat. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think she was a very good player, and before that you had Bruce. So I
Mm-hmm.
just think there have always been bigger people, and then lucky for her, once last week rolls around, the target's on Julie.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that Julie remained in, and now you have a war between Julie and Drew. So I think this next week might be the first time where D actually has an option to be the biggest threat.
Interesting. Okay. I like that.
Which
Hmm.
good on her for like hiding out behind all these other people.
Oh, absolutely. Go
Yeah.
D.
Oh, it's gonna be fun either way. Is it 3 hours
Yeah.
again? Is that the way it goes every year now?
3 hours?
That's how it has been the past couple seasons. 3 hour finale.
No, it hasn't.
Yes, it has. I promise you. I
Can't be
mean,
true. It's been like 2 hours.
I don't think so. Um, let me. Yeah, last year was 3
Yeah.
hours.
Oh, is that including? I guess I don't really watch the reunion a ton. That might be why.
Yeah, that's part of it for sure.
Golly, that's a lot.
Yeah, block off some
But it'll
time.
be good.
I hope so. Hope it'll be
What?
good.
So, wait. So last year, this is the first year with hour-and-a-half episodes, right?
Yeah.
So is it going to be 4 hours?
I doubt it. I feel like, because here's the issue: is usually like network TV only has a 3 hour chunk every night because they have like game shows at the 6 o'clock hour, and then the news has to come on at 10. So I don't think
Yeah,
you
I
can
guess.
do more than. You know how local TV works. I know you're watching the news 10 p.m. every night.
Always. I'm a big news guy.
Dude, I actually really like watching the local news. Like if I'm watching like football or something and it just happens to come on after, and it's hilarious. It's like, oh,
I believe that.
this weekend we had a kite flying event in the park. Let's talk to a local to see their opinions. Like, yeah, I've been coming out here every year. Me and my dad built this kite this year. It's great. It's good stuff.
Just makes you feel like you're a part of the community.
It really does. Even though like I'm not a part. Like I relate to none of it.
I'm just absolutely not a part of it.
In fact, it makes me feel even more isolated. The fact that I just live in my own online world and don't interact with anything local. Anyways, that's enough about local news. Anything else about Survivor? Should we be done here?
No, let's get out of here.
All right. For more episodes, visit notgameoutpersonal.com. What else do I say? Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube at NJAPpod, at NJAPpod, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You know where to listen to us at this point. I'm Nathan. This is Tony, and we will see you next week for the finale.
6 seasons, 2 friends, 1 podcast.